Okay, chat, say hello to YouTube. So, hello YouTube. I'm here live on twitch.tv/Rocalos. We are going to be doing a Banlist discussion off the cuff as to the changes that are happening starting on September 1st, 2023. So I have the new ban list here pulled up, and we're going to address some of the changes and talk about their impacts on the metagame. So I'm not going to address these cards in order. I'm going to address them in an order that I find sees fit. So right away, I want to start with the big three, what I call the big three of this ban list. We have Rongo Miniad, Bish Balkan, and Block Dragon, okay? These three cards are what I like to call good riddance. They were doing nothing healthy for the metagame, and it's good that they're gone.
I'm glad you did.
So, bye-bye. Enough said, nothing else. Okay. Agito, I will discuss later when I talk about another card. And Merly, I am going to save for last. I'm going to save Merly for last because it's the one that warrants the most discussion. Okay. Now let's talk about some of the least impactful hits. Remember, I'm not going in order. So in terms of least impactful hits, we have Blaster going to 2. This is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Nadir Servant going to 3. I think this card is still really good, but I don't think it's good enough to be anywhere in the limited list. This is fine. It's not really going to change the metagame. AFD is a card that either goes to 1, or it's either at 0 or it's at 3. So really, who cares? Gearsu's really cool because Gearsu means that technically Orchist is now at full power. That being said, Orchist, along with the other Toss archetypes, have kind of long been power crept, and it doesn't matter. Orchist can be at full power. It doesn't matter. Luster Pendulum, the Draco Slayer. I'll talk about this one next. This card has 2 paragraphs, which means I've never read it.
This is worthless.
It's less than worthless, my boy.
I'm assuming it's fine at 2. Extravagance is a hit to a very small consistency hit to Labyrinth, which I think is rightfully done because when you hit so many other decks, you have to check some of the lower tier decks, like like Labyrinth was like a tier 2, tier 1.5 strategy. So if you're gonna hit the top of the food chain a lot, you have to hit the middle of the food chain at least a little bit, right? And I think Extravagance to 2 falls in line with the limitations that we've seen to other consistency cards like Pot of Duality and Pot of Prosperity. That's fine. Branded Fusion. Branded Fusion to 1. So this is going to be the first big one that we're talking about because this addresses the 3 major tier 1 decks that were hit in this ban list. That being Tearlament, Sprite, and Branded. Let's address Branded first. With regards to Branded, Branded has about like 6 to 9 different ways of searching Branded Fusion, and they have about 3 to 6 different ways of adding Branded Fusion back to their hand after they've already used it. More often than not, you weren't losing to a hard-drawn Branded Fusion. You were losing to a Branded Fusion that was searched off of an effect. So I actually don't think that Branded Fusion going from 2 to 1 copy actually hurts the deck that much. It does hurt the deck a little bit, but I think Branded is still very much playable. You're just gonna have to find ways to get it now. And then after you've used Branded Fusion on turn 1, you're gonna have to find ways to add it back to your hand with Retribution, with Tragedy, etc. The Bestial Engine is still very much in full swing, so you have cards like Lubellion to access your loss to shield your Branded Fusion. You have cards like Serenir to dump Retribution to get access to Branded Fusion. You have a ton of ways to access this card. If you're a Branded player, don't worry, you've seen worse, okay? Grass. I think I'll talk about grass in a sec. The next two hits I want to talk about are Swap Frog and Sprite Jet. Okay. With Swap only at 1, I don't think there's a reason to play the Frog cards anymore in your Sprite deck. That is. I don't know if we still play Ronin Tonin and 1 Swap. That seems a little bit mediocre. So it could put an end to that engine. Sprite Jet, on the other hand, that's a pretty substantial hit. But despite the fact that Sprite Jet is at 1, Elf is still a card. Elf is still a card. So it's not like you don't have any way of recurring your Sprite cards anymore. You do still have Elf. So Jet being at 1, it does matter. It does matter. But I think Jet being at 1 matters insofar as if you lose access to it, it shuts you down from a lot of your follow-up. And let's not forget, Jet is a dark monster. One way you could lose access to it is if it gets Bestialed, which people will still run Bestials. So your Jet could very likely get banished, and that would really hurt. But I think it's very possible for Sprite variants to exist with 1 Jet. It's just that without Swap Frog, I think the Sprite variants that now start to excel are runic variants of Sprite. So things like Live Twin Runic Sprite, For Hire Runic Sprite, these are the variants that start to excel now. And that's cool because it shakes up the Sprite deck a little bit. I was getting a little bit bored of seeing Melfi Sprite again and again and again and again and again. I welcome some variety in that strategy. Okay. Grass. Let's talk about grass. We're saving tier for last. I know. We'll talk about grass. I'm a little upset about this one. I'm a little upset by it because I don't think it does enough. I don't understand why we can't just ban grass. Like, it's just gonna feel so sacky now. It's just gonna feel so sacky. Like, I think the odds of opening a 1-of in 60 cards, I believe, if I remember correctly, it's 8.33%, which is 1 in 12 games. So it's like 1 in 12 games, like 8% of the time your opponent is going to open grass, 33% of the time you're going to open Ash Blossom. So, which means that your grass is going to resolve about 5% of games. And those 5% of games, like that 1 in 20 games where you resolve grass, it's just gonna feel so sacky. It's just gonna feel so sacky. I don't like it. Yeah, I don't really like it. I think grass should just be banned. I think this card is too free. This card is too free. This card is literally like a plus 15. When your opponent resolves grass, it almost feels like you have to beat 3 different decks with one deck. It's like resolving grass. It's like when you're playing Dark Souls and you beat the boss, and then a cutscene plays out, and then 2 more bosses spawn because there's a second phase. That's how grass is. When grass resolves, it's like having to fight 2 bosses at once. So yeah, I feel like we should just get rid of it. We should just get rid of it. But you know what? I'll take it going to 1 over staying at 2. So sure. Okay. That was very long-winded. Sorry about that. Now, let's get to what we're all here for. We're here to talk about Tearlament, okay? We're here to talk about the Tearlament cards. And there's 2 Tearlament cards that suffered a substantial hit here. 3 of them. Agito, Kelbeck, and Merly, okay? Let's talk about Kelbeck and Agito first. So with Kelbeck and Agito, I'm surprised to see Agito get banned. Surprised to see Agito get banned. I don't hate it because the fairies are very overtuned, but I am gonna miss it. I'm gonna miss it. Like I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Losing Agito hurts. Losing Agito hurts. That being said, the Shizu cards are still so strong. I think you still play Keldo Mudora and the 1 of Kelbeck. I don't think that changes. So The difference now is that I don't know if we have a reason to play Diviner anymore. Because you can normal summon Diviner and send the one Kelbeck in your hand, assuming you didn't draw it. But then any other copies of Diviner are now dead in your grave. If you've already, there's a real chance where you've milled all your fairies, and even if you can reborn your Diviner with an elf, you don't have enough fairies left to send. So I don't know if it's still worth it to play Diviner, but that is something that we'll have to find out through more testing, because Diviner is still a crazy card as long as Elf is legal. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I am sad to see Kelbeck go to 1 only because it's a very cool hand trap. I think Kelbeck next to Hofness is probably one of my favorite in-engine hand traps in the entire game. It has a very unique activation condition and a very unique and a very unique effect that allows for a lot of skill expression. But anyway, that's Agito and Kelbeck. Finally, Merly. Oh man, Merly.
Don't cry for me. I'm already dead.
Rest in peace. Rest in peace. I promised my friend I would say this on camera. I would rather Kit stay legal and Merly be banned because I do not like children. Okay, so let me get that out of the way. I do not like children. So for that reason, I guess I'll take it.
Good job, I guess.
But that's it. That's it. Okay, that's it. I promised my friend I would say that on camera. So, losing Merly changes a lot. Let's talk about superficially what it does to the deck. So first of all, only 2 fusions per turn. You only have Hofness and Siren. Only 2 fusions. You're going to spend 1 fusion on Kid Kalos, and you're going to spend the other fusion likely on Rule Kalos or Kaleido Heart. Which means you can't extend through Garura anymore, and you can't extend through Mud Dragon anymore as easily as you could before. Because your first fusion goes to Kit, your second fusion goes to Kaleido or Rukalos more often than not, okay? So that's rough. That's rough. Sprind is no longer a Tearlament card. Sprind was more powerful in Tearlament than it was in Sprite, despite the fact that it was called Sprite Sprind. But now, you don't play Sprint anymore. So you have an entire slot in your extra deck freed up. As Garura, do you still play Garura? You still play it as a super poly target, but now you have a much harder time having 2 Aquas in the graveyard unless you're playing Dangers. So yeah, Merly's really tough because you lose Sprind. You lose IP into Sprint, which is a common thing that we were doing in the TCG, or that we did in the TCG. You don't see it as much in Master Duel, and you don't have that last ditch effort. You know, like Tearlament matches often evolved, like they developed into this game state where the Tearlament player would be able to have 2 bodies on board, and the 2 bodies could convert to a Sprint, and then the Sprint could convert into full combo. And this created a very interesting dynamic where keeping your opponent off bodies was very important. You don't have that anymore. And there's no good substitute for Merly. Some of the common ones I'm seeing in chat right now are like playing King of the Swamp. That has nothing to do with Merly. You're replacing an apple in your deck with an orange. It's completely unrelated. Other common examples I've seen are like playing Laundry Dragon Maid. Sure, that's okay. It is a mill 3. That's not a bad card, and the deck is at a deficit of normal summons now. But you still don't have the graveyard effect, and the graveyard effect is just as important as the mill 3. Grief is a card that can now be played to up your consistency, but I still am of the opinion that I just really don't like Grief, so I don't know how good that's going to be. It's something that bears mentioning, or something that bears testing. Yeah, those are the changes that Merly provides. So no sprint, 2 fusions per turn, and the last bit is the consistency. The consistency. You have we went from having 2 Calbec, 1 Agito, 2 Merly, so that's 5 cards. Now we only have 1 Calbec. So we lost 4 good mills in a 40 card deck where you open 5 cards. In other words, you lost over 10% of your deck that was good mills is now gone. That matters. That matters. There's nothing good to replace it with. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But the effect will certainly be felt. So rest in peace, Merly. But Kid Kalos is still legal. Kid Kalos is still legal. And that's really good. That's really good. That's really good. Chat, as I see right now, you have mentioned it. Yes, this was going to be my final point. Let's talk about, now that we've talked about like the hits, let's talk about the winners of this ban list. Let's talk about who came out on top. And the first one I'll talk about, since I just finished talking about Tearlaments, is Dragon Link. Dragon Link is insane now. It didn't get any hits. None of the Bystials got hit. Magnemite is still legal. Chaos Ruler is still legal. Rebellion is still legal. Regained is still legal. The deck is insane. The deck is actually insane. It literally just won Worlds, and it doesn't even matter. Like, Konami just loves dragons. Konami just loves dragons.
And you know what else? You know what else? You're a girl dragon. Oh, sure. I mean, of course you're a girl dragon.
So I think that Dragon Link is unequivocally the best deck in Master Duel come September 1st. Like, it is the best deck in Master Duel starting September 1st. And also, your Tearlament matchup just got so much better. Because now, there's only 2 fusers. It's like, you draw Magna, it's virtually over for the Tearlament player. It's virtually over. That's pretty insane. And the last winner of the ban list. The last winner of the ban list is Labyrinth. Labyrinth is still a very strong deck. Losing 1 Extravagance is not that big a deal. So the deck is still virtually full power, and Labyrinth is almost as strong as on September 1st as it was on August 31st. So Labyrinth is still really good. Runic is a winner, but I have already addressed Runic. So those are the 2 that I haven't mentioned yet. So yeah, Dragon Link, Labyrinth, Runic are the winners. Tearlament is going to have to adapt, overcome, and Block Dragon, Bishbalkin, and Rongo, good riddance. Branded players, you're fine, don't cry, you're okay, you have plenty of things to do. Everybody else, you don't really, those cards don't matter, they're irrelevant. As for the final thing to mention, Kashtira, we don't know when it's gonna come out. And until we know when it's gonna come out, I don't really feel the need to address it. So we'll see what happens when Kashtira comes out. But that was my analysis of the September 2023 Master Duel ban list. I hope you all enjoyed. Check me out on Twitch, Twitter, join my Discord server, all that stuff. And yeah, everybody say bye-bye to YouTube, and YouTube, bye-bye.
I have to go now. My planet needs me.